And he says, by the way, your electroencephalogram was abnormal. And I said, you know, my mother always said that my brain waves were not normal. Evidence was quite mixed, and by the way, on Head Start, too. The Westinghouse report in the late 60s didn't show a whole lot of progress, nor has there really been a Head Start study since then which has shown overwhelming progress, even though there are studies at pre-K now, some coming out of the University of Chicago, which are very promising, show some real significant gains. Now, I'm not opposed, by the way, to a welfare system that make sure kids have enough to eat and having a hot breakfast. I mean, I'm in favor of integrated services to poor families. So I'm not denigrating the other thing, but at the end of the day, we simply cannot accept the excuse that you came to us as damaged goods and we really can't help you. Right. Cannot accept that. Right. And by the way, that is very unusual in the world. You know, there's a saying that at 10 o'clock in the morning, you know exactly the lesson that every third grader in France is reviewing that morning. That it's a national curriculum and it's very rigid. The French don't seem to have as much problem, but in America, we have a long history of distrust of government and individual rights, and our system has evolved a lot differently. I'm certainly not a rigid originalist by any means, but the idea that you could just make up anything, I found very difficult, and that caused me to have lots of arguments. And frequently, by the way, it was used in a fairly arbitrary way. Since it can mean anything, that might as well mean what I say it means. So if letters of marque and reprisal seem to deal with piracy, but your quest in life is to outlaw the death penalty, somehow you see that language as supporting your position. So it's only neutral in a very strange sort of way, in that it delegitimates you, the other side, by saying your reasoning is no more powerful than mine because the words have no natural meaning. You know, I would try to read, Prolegomena to a Modern Metaphysics by Kant and so forth. I always deluded myself that I really understood, but rather than always having classes, I would just pick up a copy and read it. I later did that with Maimonides because everyone told me he was impenetrable. I think they were right, by the way, but anyhow. Well, I mean, you start with the proposition that I thought the historic contract, if you will, between public universities and states had frayed. You know, they gave you money, you kept the tuition low, you offered a first-class education, you did research, you interacted with the various constituencies, including industrial constituencies and agriculture. You tried to do some good in the world by, dealing with issues of poverty and food safety and health and so forth. And it was fraying. They wanted a free ride. And they were shifting more of the cost to the students. And that's continued to this day, by the way. So I was interested in renewing the contract. It's different than sympathy. I mean, sympathy is more paternalistic, I think, in my opinion. Empathy is harder to achieve, by the way. You know, if someone jumps in front of me in line when I'm waiting for my In-N-Out hamburger, empathy is not always what I feel. Okay, I should start by saying I didn't realize when I made the decision to come to UC that the crisis was as deep and as monumental as it was. I think my family thought I was crazy. I felt like I wanted one more mountain to climb, and I was very attracted to the fact that this was the great University of California. And if you're in the public university business, being a chancellor or president of the system is a monumental thing to take on and very gratifying, and I never lost sight of that. I mean, the students were great, and the faculty won Nobel Prizes and won Pulitzer Prizes, and it's a terrific place from the standpoint of scholarship and ingeniousness and creativity. And by the way, there were scholarships above that too, but that was the guarantee program. And it turned out, I think it's around 60% of all UC students get scholarships. And the numbers show that it worked. We have the highest percentage of Pell Grant students anywhere. We have a huge percentage of first to go to college. It actually opened the doors. And we'd always had open doors, but it got better. And every time I met with a group of business people who said, we need more engineers and all, I said, that's fine. How many of you have engineering degrees? And always over half of them had liberal arts degrees. If you can cut so job-oriented, and you could teach someone to put a bolt on a car, and the next thing you know, there's a robot doing it, that what we need are flexible, critical minds, and people who absorb culture and enjoy the great civilizations over thousands of years. And I always tell students who want to go to law school, I said, the first thing you do is I recommend you not take any law courses as an undergraduate. You'll have 3 years of it. Then I said, learn how to think, learn how to write, and take what interests you. I mean, I took Greek thought and astronomy, for crying out loud. And most of my astronomy turned out to be wrong, so George Blumenthal tells me. But nonetheless, I enjoyed it at the time. Yeah, so that's where that comes from. It has a liberating impact on the spirit, even if we can't guarantee a job. And we should try to get you jobs, but you miss the multiple dimensions. And the data, you know, you can talk about cause and effect, but if you're looking at personal happiness and stable relationships and your health and civic participation, they all improve once you factor in the level of education.